Hey everyone, agentic coding tools like Cursor, Claude Code, and Codex have gotten really good at helping you to write code. But if you've ever shipped a real app into production, you will know that coding is only half the story. The hard stuff really lives outside of your editor. Long-running servers, weird production-only bugs, cron jobs, bash scriptings, and logs that you have to stare at for 20 minutes before you can actually figure out what's going wrong. And that's the reason why you should be caring about agentic capabilities within your operating system, not just your coding environment. And so today I will be covering warp. And this is what I like to call an agentic operating system. It helps me to not just modify code, but instead it sits right next to me along my running processes, my file system, my bash scripts, and everything else that I use as part of my day-to-day workflow as a developer. So in today's video, I'm going to be using my app. It pulls data from multiple Claude and Anthropic subreddits and then performs sentiment analysis using the OpenAI API. This is the same app that I've been evolving over several of my previous videos, so you should definitely check it out if you want to learn more about how I built this. So in today's video, I'll be showing you 3 things that warp can do that most AI code editors can't. First, we'll troubleshoot a tricky bug that isn't even in the code. Watch warp figure it out live by studying the server logs. Second, we'll be running a long-running script. Warp is able to continuously monitor it for us, so we never have to guess whether it's still working. And finally, we'll implement a brand new feature end-to-end without leaving the terminal. These are all workflows that you as a developer would be encountering, and where warp really shines because it's not just a code editor or generator. It's an agent that lives within your operating system, helping you to ship and develop faster. And by the way, if you want to use warp in your own workflows, you can try it out for free. Just use my link that you see over here, or you can head on over to the link in the description below to get started. So the first thing you'll notice is that this is just like any regular terminal, right? You can do all your bash commands and everything that you would expect to see within a terminal like yours. There's a terminal mode as well as an agent mode. And if you start typing here, it's context aware. So if you run ls, it knows to run a bash command, but you can actually say, how many folders are there here? So you'll then be able to perform agentic commands, and you can just press OK. And it'll say that it's going to run this, and it'll answer there are 10 folders in this directory. So this is the idea that I'm getting at, is that you're not just using AI within your code base. It now sits and lives alongside you as part of your operating system. Enough about that for now. Let's jump into our project. So I'm going to go into my projects folder, and this is the Cloudometer application that I've been working on for my past couple of videos. And very quickly, I will go into back, and then I'm going to do npm run dev. Okay, and you can see this is running like a regular terminal, and I'm just going to jump into the application that you see over here. Great. Okay, if you want to go deeper and get hold of the source code of this project, along with everything from all of my other videos, including my sub-agents, my workflows, my orchestration, and many other apps that I built with AI, you can get it over at builderpack.ai. It is my all-in-one toolkit to help you ship AI faster. Link is in the description. So there's several things that's going on here. First of all, the app has ingested data from the Reddit subreddits. So Claude AI, Claude Code, and Anthropic. And if you filter into each one of these ones, you'll be able to get subreddit-specific analysis across the sentiment, the discussion volume, as well as the top keywords. The sentiment here runs against an OpenAI endpoint where it would then perform AI analysis on all of the topics that you see. So that's a quick overview of what the app does. Let's actually start off with one bug that we have in the system right now. Can you see here that if I go to 30 days, it only shows 17, 18, 19. And then if I go to 7 days, you will see that all of the graphs are blank. The real reason why this is happening is because the ingestion logic has not been run for the past 30 days. So it only has everything up till October 19th. And obviously that means in the past 7 days, there hasn't been anything. Now, if you were debugging something like this, you go into your console and you'll be like, what's going on here? And so this doesn't really give you much information. So what you can do is now switch over into warp, and this is the server running, right? So let me just show this running for you over here so that you can see it, and I'm just going to make this a bit smaller. All right, so you can see here, when I'm at 90 days, everything looks correctly, but when I go to 7 days, it doesn't show up in the graph. And what you see in the background is that the server is also not showing any issues. So this is one of those things where it's not really a code issue, but it's understanding what is the runtime issue that's affecting this behavior. And this is where warp comes in handy. So if I stop over into a new terminal, I can add the context of that running deployment over here. So I can say, I am running this server locally. This is the context. I need you to study it as I flick between 7 days, 30 days, and 90 days for you to figure out why the graph only shows up on 90 days and 30 days, but not 7 days. And now once that's done, you can do add context and click on blocks, and you can use the npm run dev blocks that you see running over here. Okay, so if you hit that, and now you can switch back here and you can start flicking around and clicking all of the different buttons just to show the behavior happening. And then just jump back into here for it to be able to understand what's been going on. So it says here, I'll inspect the API route to see how the 7-day range is handled differently. So it's starting to investigate. Is there something going on that's different with the 7 days filter versus the 30 days? All right, so that's his first guess. And then now it says that I'll look at the aggregation service and database shape to see how the 7-day window is computed and why it might return different data. Now it's going to a thinking mode, so you'll be able to see the reasoning traces within the warp terminal as well. And I think it's actually narrowing down what the issue is. All right, and now it's saying it wants to do a run shell command in order to debug what's going on with this application. And I'm just going to set all this to auto approve now so that you can just fire away while I'm recording this video. If you look through the thinking reasoning again, it says that it needs to do some further checks, and now it's going to use JQ to do a bit of parsing of the commands, because it's trying to troubleshoot to see if it's something to do with the data structure, is it something to do with the code, is it something to do with the environment. So obviously I know what the real issue is, but I wanted to show you how you can use warp to be able to do these kind of debugging steps that are not necessarily code errors, but are to do with everything that's running, as well as the need for it to be able to run things like curl commands, bash scripts, and parsing. And this can only happen when it's running within the terminal. So finally, let's take a look here. It says the graphs disappear on 7 days because, and rightly, there is no data at all in the last 7 days. What's actually happening? And then it gives you the exact things to be able to show. The dashboard computes the data window like this. It verified it with a curl, and then it checked the response. And then it saw that it was an empty array, and then it parsed the response to see all of this. So finally, it shows that the daily aggregate last one was 19th of October, which is correct. You can see over here. And therefore, these 7-day queries return fine and zeros. So it tells you how you're going to be able to fix this. You have two main options: get the data into the last 7 days, or you can actually anchor the dashboard. So it correctly identified the error. It was one of those troubleshooting things that requires you to know a little bit about how to work with the application, not just the code that is running it. So this got it correct. So let's actually move on to the second part where we actually fix this problem. Okay, so what we want to do now is to actually backfill these missing dates. So very quickly, let me just show you what it should be doing, and let's see if we can figure it out. So over here into the app, I have an API to ingest it by backfilling. And the idea here is that you can backfill across a certain number of days. But let's assume that we are going to rely on the agent to figure this out. I'm going to switch to agent mode, and I can just do this by typing asterisk, and you can see agent mode is here. You can also use the mouse to click if you would prefer. And I'm going to do this. Great. You are right. The data is missing for the past 7 days. Go ahead and use the backfill endpoint. Create a script such that I can easily run this, or other team members will be able to run this on their machines or on a virtual machine somewhere. Be careful and make sure to comment the code and keep things simple and test to make sure that it's working once this is done. The server is still running in the following context. Okay, so I'm going to pass in a few things. So I'm going to pass in the same block again, npm run dev, and then I'm going to pass in the context of the backfill endpoint. I don't think this is really necessary, to be perfectly honest. It would have been able to find it out itself. In fact, I think that's how he actually came to that conclusion, but no harm in giving this a roll. And let's just give that a shot now and see how it fares in resolving this next request. So just a quick summary here is that we just now saw how, how we saw an holistic approach to debugging what was a bug on screen with no console logs and no errors in the server logs. Yet because it was able to run queries and use a bunch of scripts and requests, as well as parsing in the background, in the terminal, it was able to figure it out. And that's a very powerful use case and a workflow that you want to be able to have. And sometimes within a coding environment, it's not necessarily going to be able to do so. It might try to only focus on the code changes, and that is not going to be sufficient to debug something like this. Now, one of the things that you can see over here is it says that the backfill requires that the header has the cron secret passed in. And this is something, like I said, it's more of an environment setting that you need to be able to be aware of. It's not a code change. It's not something that is immediately apparent because it's more of an environment and settings issue. Yet it was able to figure this out looking at the code. And one of the things that I really like about Warp is that it allows you to review all the changes to your files over here. It actually has a really good looking interface. So you can look at this over here. You can see all of these are the uncommitted changes, and you can compare it against all of the different branches. So this is the new backfill script that it has. And then is added in as a new command that you can run over here. So I'm just going to close this, and then I'm going to say, okay, and it says that it's missing a cron secret. So I will say the cron secret is in env.local. Read it from there and use it. Okay. And so this will allow it to be able to actually run the cron job this time. So you can see it's running the backfill task. And this is what I really like about Warp, is that it gives you this internal notifications, giving you an understanding of what's going on, because this is a long running process here where it's going to try to backfill it. And it says that the process appears to be taking a long time. Let me continue monitoring. And this is going to take a while because it's going to have to pass all of the Reddit comments, store it in the database, run it against OpenAI's APIs, run the analysis and the sentiment, and then populate the database again before rendering everything to screen. So it's just going to continue here. All right. And you can, at any point of time, if you feel like, wait a minute, there's something going wrong here, you can also just take over the command. But otherwise, you can just leave this running. And like I said, this is almost like having an agent in your operating system, a person that's always alongside you, looking at what you're doing and what you're running. And if you're running in, say, like just a regular terminal or in Claude Code or Cursor, you wouldn't have this kind of like stream of thoughts showing you what it's doing and why it's what it's doing. This is a really nice aspect of why Warp is so great and what it does. Because, like I said, a lot of what you're doing as a developer is not just coding and running the code. It's always about populating data, ingesting new data, troubleshooting, looking at the logs, and everything that is like that. All right, and it's just going to continue running these little statuses. It lets you know that it's not that it's hung, it's actually going to continue to monitor it, and you can safely leave this running so that it'll be able to just keep an eye on it while you move on to other tasks. Okay, so just a very quick change that I did is that I decided to just switch it quickly to backfill just the past 7 days. If you actually take a look at it right now, I ran it for 1 day and it started. I ran it for 1 day and it started to populate for November 17 and November 16. But I need this to run for a little bit more, and so I just had to make sure that it was working correctly. And you can see it's managed to pull all of the comments into here. And so now I'm just going to let this run for the next 7 days, and I'm going to let this run for 7 days worth so that we get a bit more data to play around with. Another thing to note is that I actually told it to switch to using just a curl and bash script rather than trying to do it within a TypeScript file. The reason for that is that, long story short, when you do 30 days worth, it tends to be a long running process. And what you end up seeing is that one of the libraries that he was using would time out much earlier. So therefore, just to keep things simple, I just asked you to use a bash script. And you can see here, it's going to continue to read the output and see what the script prints and ensures that it completes. So we're just going to let this run. And the other way to see things chugging along is to just look into the database. You can see that it started to fill up the 15th of November as well. This is a sign that it's all working. We'll just leave this to run until the end. One of the interesting things that you can do with this status over here is you can also have a conversation with it while it's still running. So you can say something like, is it normal to expect this to take a while? I saw entries in the database. All right, and you can see it will pop your message in, and then you saw that reassuring message to tell you that everything seems to be fine. So that's a really nice aspect of having this status bar over here. Another reason of why having Warp is really good agentic paradigm to have as part of your development workflow. Okay, folks, we are back. So the backfill is completed. So you can see that I've now got the sentiment across the past 7 days from today at the time of recording. And this is all working well because you can see all the top posts. You can see what actually happened and what contributed to this sentiment. So this one, front-end design skills, so amazing. And then it seems that there was some negative sentiment related to the free Sonnet 4.5 access. And you can see the discussion volume over the past 7 days as well. But it was quite a lot, and could be that this one is still running in the background and hasn't completed. So we'll just let that continue. But the idea here is to show you that it's managed to finish up with the task of running the backfill. All right, so now what we're going to do is we're going to create a new functionality over here just to close the loop on what you would usually be doing as part of your workflow. So you can imagine, so if you can see everything we've done so far, we started the project, we got everything running, we saw how to debug the logs, we identified a bug, We backfill the data by running one of the endpoint scripts that is usually run as an offline process. And now finally, let's build a new feature. So right now we have these fixed dates over here. I thought it would be nice to go about doing something where it allows you to have a custom date picker. So let's do it here. I'm going to go into agent mode. Okay, and let's do this. I would like to implement a new feature. And in this feature, I want us to be able to have a custom date selector such that we will be able to select beyond the fixed constraint 7 days, 30 days, and 90 days window. Make sure that this is implemented in a aesthetically pleasing way and that is intuitive and that it works without any errors. All right, so we have that. And the other thing that you want to do is that you can use plan mode such that Warp doesn't just go ahead and implement this. And it's very similar to other things like Cursor and Claude Code and Codex. So let's just kick off this plan mode over here for this new feature that Warp will go ahead and design for us. And the main thing, and one of the best things here, and one of the best things if it's not already obvious, is you have access to all of these different models as well. And for something like this, when you're doing the plan mode, it's always best to use something like GPT 5.1 with high reasoning. So I'm going to do plan mode with the high reasoning, and let's go ahead. All right, and you can see here the thinking and reasoning of the GPT 5.1 is coming up now. So it understands that we are trying to do a new feature. And then what it's going to lay out is a step-by-step assessment of what it needs to do in order to be able to implement this feature. So the difference here is because we've used plan. So this will in effect allow it to first propose a design and an implementation plan before going forward with the actual implementation. So you can see here after a thought for 46 seconds, it's going to look at the patterns within the app. And now it's identified where fixed ranges are referenced. So it's going to now open the relevant files, as you can see, to determine how to create a custom date picker as part of this implementation plan. All right, and you can see that as part of its investigation, it notices that while we are using shared CN components, it does not use any third-party libraries at this stage. And it says that maybe you could grab some new components from the shared CN docs or implement something custom. So let's just see what it ends up doing. And the next thing it does so that was the front end. The next thing it did was to assess the back-end endpoints to see whether or not it's even possible to do a custom date range. And then it's going to check the other services related to the app as well, which is not just the sentiment, but the keyword service that you see over here. Okay. The keyword service that you see over here. Cool. So now it's going to begin the design phase so that the visual elements actually look correct. And then it's looking at. So you can see Warp has a really extensive agentic flow over here. It's thinking and it's reasoning, and then it's performing a bunch of tool calls here to look at the files, read them, understand, and then propose the next step. So this is quite important. This is one thing to realize that is really important, and having access to this for your coding tasks is already great. But don't forget, as demonstrated so far, this also now extends to your entire operating system as well. And I think this is a really powerful paradigm to be able to have at your disposal as a developer. And it's really interesting to see the thinking and reasoning process, right? You can see, and sometimes in some other code editors and tools, they tend to hide this from you quite a bit. or they flash it in very quickly. And I do find that this is quite useful to see the direction that it's heading, because the good thing about warp is also that you can ask a follow-up and interrupt the flow if, just say, you feel that it's going down the wrong path. In this case, it seems to be going right, so I'm just going to leave it. So I'm just going to leave it, and we'll just wait for this to wrap up so that we have a plan for implementation. All right, so it's finished all of its reasoning and it's come up with a plan, which you can see right over here. So it's come up with how to handle things in the front end and then how to handle things in the back end, followed by making sure that it knows how to make all of the relevant proposed changes as part of this new feature. I think I'm pretty happy with this. Let's just do it. So let's proceed with the implementation, keeping things simple and making no mistakes. Okay, and while we're doing this, I'm just going to switch this to something like Haiku, which I think is probably sufficient enough for a feature like this. So I will just restart. I'll run this again. Let's proceed. All right, and I'll just restart this again. Let's proceed with the implementation, keeping things simple and making no mistakes. So you can see within Warp, it creates a to-do list that matches the plan that has been laid out. And while these things are going on, you will also be able to review the code changes that are going through here. So I'm just going to accept them, and I'm just going to auto-approve all of them right now. And as you can see over here, one more time, you have this code review screen where while things are running on the left-hand side, you're going to be able to take a look and see if everything is looking right with the code changes. Very straightforward so far. It's going to add a console log here. It's going to update some of the scripts in the package. And then here we go with the time range support utility functions. So this is just going to keep going over here. Because we're using 4.5 Haiku, this should be running pretty quickly. But all the same, now we finished step 1, and it's now going to go on to step 2 in the list of tasks. So what we're going to do is that we're going to let this run into completion and then draw back and see what the final result is. All right, folks, you can see from the original plan that it has, every time it went through and updated and made changes, it would go ahead and update the task list. And now it's reported that it's completed everything to do with the custom date picker, along with all the files that have been changed over here. And like I said, you can review all the changes in this panel over here as well. This will give you the ability to make sure that to perform a proper code review of what's been happening. Let's take a look at how the app looks like right now. So here's the app that we were seeing before, except that you now see that we have this custom date picker right now. So let's give this a whirl and see. So we can click this custom date. Let's just go, say, maybe from Wednesday and then bringing it to Friday. So just basically the tail end of last week. And you can see that the filter is working correctly now. You get the 3 days worth of the sentiment as well as the discussion volume. You can go ahead and click on them so you know what actually contributed to the ratings. All right. And you can see that there's a bunch of different things, right? Never give an API key to Claude Code Web, -0.8. And then a couple of neutral things. Being rude does not impact the AI as much. And then you have some more positive things like, to anyone using Claude Code and Markdown files, why not both? All right, for productivity. Okay, everything is working as expected, and it displays it very nicely as well. So you can see this custom range looks really good. All right, so this feature has now been completed. So we've gone through the entire motion of running to make sure that this works correctly. And remember, because we have this running in npm run dev, we can now ask it, make sure the new functionality is working. And then we can pass in the block over here, which is the one that's running. And then we can say, try by using a custom date range. All right, I'm going to close this review here. And this is the beauty of working within a terminal, as well as having an agentic platform. It looked at the server logs and was able to verify that everything is looking correctly. And if we switch back to one of the predefined ranges, it's also working correctly. So everything's working now. We were able to close the loop by implementing a new feature using Warp. All right, so that brings us to the end of today's episode. I really hope you enjoyed it. A quick recap of what we managed to do here. We started with a real-world application with a couple of bugs, and we got Warp to orientate itself and understanding the code base. But not only that, because Warp is a fully fledged agentic platform, it was able to troubleshoot running deployments, identify what the root causes might have been, as well as fix the errors. And furthermore, because we made use of an offline backfilling long-running script, it was able to keep up to date and check to make sure that everything was running fine. And finally, just showing you that Warp itself is fully fledged for building new features on top of an existing code base as well. The difference between this and something else that just writes code is that this one is almost like it's pairing with you in your terminal, watching your servers, checking your logs, and looking at your entire file system. It still does all of the other things that you would expect from an agentic coding tool, like planning, to-do list, reviewing file changes. So if you are a developer that wants to level up in Warp, all you need to do is head on over to this link in the description below. And we've only touched the surface over here, so stay tuned for more videos like this on Warp on how it can really level up your workflows, especially with all of its agentic features. So I really hope you enjoyed today's video. Give it a like, hit that subscribe button, and don't forget to turn on notifications so that you'll be the first to know when new content like this drops. Let me know in the comments how you find Warp and anything else you'd like to see me cover in future episodes. Till next time, I'll see ya.